Guess what, everybody out there on the internet? It has arrived. Yep, the Viola arrived at about quite early. I woke up to a message saying it would be delivered. They gave me an hour window. And I was literally on tenterhooks from then on because I always get in a bit of a panic in case something goes wrong, because occasionally I've had deliveries that have come and they couldn't get through on the buzzer, or, some drama. But no drama occurred. So it arrived and it was really light, considering the money I spent on it. I thought it would be a bit heavier, but of course it's only a viola and it's an electric one. I don't know if they're lighter or heavier than wood ones. I've never picked a wooden viola up. So anyway, I opened it all up and no bow. So that was the first thing. I thought, oh, I spent an awful lot of money on it and there was no bow. That you'd think, wouldn't you, that they'd sling a bow in there, Yamaha, or offer it as an option. I mean, I don't know why let me just move something that's getting in the way. Sorry, cat. I don't know why I assumed there would be a bow with it. I suppose because I've just bought a double bass and that comes with a bow, and you sort of think, it comes as a setup normally when you go to a business. So yeah, no bow. But I've been using my cello bow, which is a vegan carbon cello bow, so it's really light anyway. And I've played around with some other bows that I have, and the sound's okay. I mean, admittedly I've only just started playing, so I'm not sure how things will pan out. I probably will have to get myself a new one, but for the moment, actually, I'm getting a really good sound on the electric cello with my the electric viola with my cello bow. Now that may have something to do with it, because the thing with the carbon bow, it's just perfect now that I've got used to it, and I've worked out how to use it on an electric cello, and the electric cello is different to the acoustic cello. It's really different. I can't explain why, but the touch is different and the response is different, but you kind of work around it, and I can already do that. So I thought, right, for the moment while I'm learning and remembering I'm going to be starting to do lessons quite soon for the Suzuki platform, really slow lessons, because I've got a lot to learn, guys. I mean, look, once you're a string player, you're a string player, but you have a lot to transfer, and we're just going to be doing lots of exercises to start with to get to know the instrument, as I do. I thought that's quite a good way to pass on knowledge, actually. Anyway, the main differences that I've noticed so far are, it's really hard to read the viola clef. Really hard. I mean, it's easier to play all my cello music on the viola because the strings are the same. And, all this from the nut is the same. And so your hand has to shrink much smaller. Of course it does. But you can hear that. It's really easy to work that out after you've got to grips with it. But it's the hardest thing, I think, for me this morning was working out how to align my body with it, and therefore know what I'm doing. I mean, it was much easier if I just put it between my legs. It was absolutely no problem if I did that. How funny is that? And apparently Jacqueline Dupre did put a post on hers, and that's how she played it. Her violin, I should say. Do I want to do that? I mean, I could. I guess I could. And in the olden days, you would see all sorts of viols on their knees, I recall. But, we'll see how we go on. I mean, at the moment, I'm using it on my shoulder. And it was really interesting because I immediately wanted to play it like a fiddle. But it had a sort of energy about it. I'm not quite sure how or what, because I've never played a violin. But it has that kind of, it's much easier to move. I suppose you move your body, but you can keep it very still even while your lower body's moving, because it's up on your neck and shoulders. So you can move your feet. That was really interesting. Now, the easiest way for me to get my head around it was just to imagine that I was laying down, and it's the same as the cello. Rather than imagining the viola was vertical, if I just imagined I was laying down with it, then the notes seemed to fall into place much easier. So that was really interesting. The thing I'm having real trouble with is the string crossing. Really difficult because they're so close together compared to my cello. I mean, I thought my cello was bad enough string crossings. Some days I catch other strings, accidentally. But this, even more. But I tell you what, the chords are going to be much easier. Way easier. Because, everything is so close together. So everything's kind of microscopic, which is really interesting. So the other thing I've had a bit of trouble with this morning is making sure the bow is perpendicular. And the key here is, I believe, for me anyway, to watch the line of the bridge. Just watch it and be perpendicular with that. You can see. I kept having to bend over and look in the mirror to see if I was perpendicular. Really interesting. It's fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. I love it. I love it. I love it. I still love my cello. I haven't left my cello like a spurned lover or anything like that. But it's new. It's got the novel factor. And I think I'm going to be quite good at it. I don't think it's going to take me too long, guys, to, the Suzuki book. I've just done my D scale, which I did really well because it's by ear, isn't it? You're playing by ear with your scales. And once you play one instrument, really, you've got all that. One string instrument. I'm not going to say that coming from a piano to a viola would be easy, because you've still got to learn all this technique, string technique. That would be tricky. But certainly coming from a cello to a viola. And I guess going to the violin would be harder because it's not strung the same as the cello. I think, is it higher up? It's got an E string, hasn't it? Well, actually, I'm not sure if they're a fifth apart, the notes on a violin. I mean, who knows? I may well get a violin one day, but it's not at the moment because I've got a double bass coming. I want to use that. So how are we going to get on with the Suzuki viola? I think it's doable. I think we're going to be absolutely fine with it. So not this week. I need to really practice an awful lot. And maybe in about 2 weeks' time, I'm going to work through this first book. I really should stay quite a long way ahead if I'm going to pass down the knowledge. This fact that I can use cello music and I can read cello music perfectly to play on it is a bit of a cheater's way. But I could easily do that, just play cello music on it. Or I could take all the software. I could take the PDFs into my software for the scores and transpose them into cello. It's not transposing even, just put them into the bass clef. That would be quite easy for me to do. But then I wouldn't learn the clef, would I? I wouldn't learn the viola clef, and I need to do that. So I am going to push myself a little bit, even though it's slightly taxing. It's just more work, guys. It's more work. Now, I found also that the difference regarding posture was immense, absolutely immense. I mean, you still got to hold your elbows up and you find that sweet spot and da-da-da-da-da. And relaxing seemed to be okay, I can do that. But certainly my, not my bowing arm, but my other arm, my left arm, actually started to ache a bit. So I guess I'm sort of bending it into a position that's a unique. You have to be a little bit more curved, I think, and up. And there's gravity. There's a lot of gravity, more gravity, because remember the cello is sort of almost, well, it's not. It's more of a 45-degree angle, whereas the viola is at a different angle. I mean, I should check that actually because I may compromise one or the other if I don't get it right. You see what I mean? So there was a difference in posture which my body isn't used to, and so everything ached quicker. I mean, I can play cello for hours and hours and hours now. Those muscles are formed and well built up. So I'll have to work on that. But I think that's about it. I think, those are the main differences that I can think of at this particular moment in time. Oh, one more. Gravity again. Because you're on an axis, a different axis. When you're playing a cello, gravity can make the bow. If you let go of the bow, it would just roll forward. But when you're playing the viola, if you let go of the bow, I don't mean totally, I mean just hold it with your thumb, it stays where it is. That's really interesting. So gravity is going to help you or hinder you if you're not used to it all the time you're playing. So you need to account for gravity. Where's gravity? Where's the centre of gravity? You'll do it naturally. We all do that naturally. We do it naturally with our own body, so we just have to make sure that the instrument's an extension of our body, so we know what we're doing with it and where we're going with it. So there we go. That's my synopsis for now. That's the short version. The long version will take me about a year, probably. I would imagine that in about 6 months, I will be reasonably proficient in the early, the early stages. Suzuki 1, maybe 1 to 4, 1 to book 4, something like that. About the same as where I am on the cello. So actually, I'm only 4. I'm 6 actually. I'm way ahead of that because I do ABRSM. What happens with my students, I tend to prefer them to do Suzuki up to about 4 and then move on to some wider methods because it kind of meets up at that point with ABRSM and the traditions of classical music. They do amalgamate at that point. Suzuki is really, for me, I believe, a beginner's way of learning. It's quite childlike, but it's really, really good for learning quickly, sort of in a simplistic way. It's not very broad. So I always tell my students after, about book 4, I mean, sometimes book 3 actually, let's get some different input to broaden our repertoire and our skill set. But of course, don't forget, I'm doing jazz and all that as well at the Suzuki School. So, I'm looking forward to doing a bit of jazz viola. How exciting. I'm going to go and look some up. I'll see if I can find any books on eBay that we can do. Oh, whoop whoop, what a great day. iServalan.com, by the way, and telltaleclub.com and www.suzuki.school. I don't know if we're coming up on Google yet. It's a very new site, but there we go.